Welcome to the New Mom Talk podcast, your go-to podcast for evidence-based answers to your burning questions about parenting. Join us as we dive into commonly Googled topics and hear from experts and real moms. Let's navigate parenthood together, one question at a time. Hey everyone! So today we are doing a collab podcast, which I'm really excited for. So I'm Mariella, your host for Mama Wears Athleisure, and we also have...
I am Jessica Lamb, and I am from the Baby Making Podcast.
And today we're going to talk about what we wish we knew about postpartum. So now that we have already gone through it once, I know there's a lot of things that I would do differently the next time around.
Oh, yeah.
So we have a list for you guys, and hopefully you already know this. And if you don't and you're expecting, then definitely take some of this into consideration for preparing and planning for that postpartum stage.
Yes. I think when you're pregnant, you don't really know what to expect, and you're getting all this information. Everybody's different, but I think taking in what works for you and leaving what doesn't, but keeping some things in the back of your mind is always helpful.
Yeah, definitely, right? Like a lot of people will tell you the one thing I always hated was like the sleep now.
Yeah.
I can't collect my sleep.
That's not practical advice.
No. All right, let's get started.
All right. I'm going to start off the top really simply and easy. One of the things I didn't realize was that my clothes weren't immediately going to fit right away. I had this expectation that I was like, okay, I'll put my pre-mom clothes right in a drawer, and once I have him, I'll just slip my jeans back on, and that is so not the case. And it's really small and stupid in the grand scheme, but it was one thing that I was like, oh my God, I need to buy new clothes now.
Yes, I have that down too. Buy things that you need to be comfortable because I want to say it was probably 4 to 5 months before I was able to fit into them to where I was feeling okay. Not comfortable, just like, okay, I feel like a human.
Yeah, and it's so funny, for whatever reason, when I was pregnant, I refused to wear maternity clothes until I literally had to. In hindsight, I'd wear them the second I found out, but I wound up wearing my postpartum clothes for so long, and I would have never guessed that was gonna happen.
Yeah, I lived in the Lululemon Align pants.
Yeah, those are good ones.
Oh, I wore those throughout my entire pregnancy, and I just did the belly band over them to keep them up. So that was awesome.
Smart.
Yeah, but I would do the same thing, is definitely invest in like cute pregnancy clothing that are just going to make you feel more like, ooh, pregnancy's hard. And even though it's only 9, I say this in quotes.
I know, 9 very long months, depending.
Yes, but like definitely invest in the nice nursing bras if you plan to nurse, or the comfy pants, or those fancy pajamas, because you're going to be in them.
Yeah. I got a lot of my clothes from Old Navy, and they have a whole maternity section. I'm pretty sure it's just online, but I wound up wearing them, honestly, till pretty recently. My son's 18 months. I had these athletic pants that were specific to postpartum. The belly band was like from where your pregnant belly would start, like all the way up to your boobs almost, depending on how long your torso is. And they just suck you in the right place and just make you feel more together than you do without. So I highly recommend those athletic pants from Old Navy.
Yeah, see, this is one route I didn't take, and I would change that up.
I know. Yeah, I just got them on a whim on a sale, and I lived in them.
My first thing on my list is something that I did not know was a thing until I started my podcast: a postpartum doula. I would 1000% invest in getting a postpartum doula to come in and help out with getting dinners ready, doing baby laundry, helping me with taking the baby so that I can nap.
Washing bottles is like the bane of my existence. And I had a postpartum doula. I was very lucky to I had a labor doula as well. She was my labor and my postpartum doula. And she was amazing. So we had her for a more extended period of time than your average doula. And our postpartum experience was a little dramatic. My son took a trip to the NICU for a while. So we didn't have her immediately postpartum. But the thing that was great was she was like checking in. What do you need? I think for me, obviously, that's a unique situation. But to have someone that I'm like, okay, like when do I start pumping? Like my son's in the NICU, when do I start pumping and how often and what kind of things do I need? And I wasn't at home. We live in Chicago, so we stayed at the Ronald McDonald House, and it's an incredible place to stay, but it's not your home. So she was so helpful in texting me, like, get this for like comfort or get XYZ at the Walgreens. Don't worry about going to the health food store. So she was so helpful in a way that I really didn't plan for her to be. I planned for her to be like home with us and cooking soups and smoothies and refilling water. And that was so incredibly helpful that I recommend a postpartum doula to anybody. I can't imagine how overwhelming it would feel to not think that I had someone like just a quick text away or, okay, I know my doula's coming in a couple hours. I can get through this rough patch in the day. So I highly recommend a postpartum doula to anybody.
And also, I have to add that even if you do have help, the difference with this is that I say paid help because you
Mm-hmm.
don't feel guilty asking them to do things for
Yeah. Yes, I totally agree.
So invest in one if you can. See
Yeah.
if insurance helps cover or what are those plans?
Yeah,
FH,
you could do so sometimes
flexible
insurance will
health.
cover and you could do a super bill at the end of your time with a doula. You could do an FSA or an HSA. There are also a lot of doulas out there who are practicing to become certified doulas and need hours. So if you are having a financial hardship or it's just not something you can do, reach out to the like doula agencies or even doula Facebook groups. A lot of area doulas will do a Facebook group for like prospective families, and just dropping in the group and saying, hey, I can only spend $300 for the first 2 weeks. Is there someone who needs hours or someone? Sometimes doulas will do it like pro bono. So get resourceful with it. If you can make it work, it is can be a game changer.
Yes.
My next one is a little deeper. My two and my three, I'm going to combine because I feel like they go together. I'm someone that prior to pregnancy dealt with a lot of anxiety, just general anxiety. And I was very worried about like postpartum depression. I was like, if anybody's a candidate, it's me. Like, I'm obsessive about things. I have so much anxiety. And I felt I didn't really have an expectation of, I thought my anxiety was just going to be the same pregnant, postpartum, all the same. But it wound up being so different. And I did wound up doing a lot of research on why. So my anxiety was all about safety. And it was like, is he safe in his where he's sleeping? Is he safe in the car seat? Is he safe with this person holding him? Or my biggest thing was like taking him places by myself and being in like a parking garage. My head was constantly on a swivel and I would go out with him because I knew I had to. I couldn't just sit at home. I had to go places with him just to start getting feeling more normal. And I would just feel so overwhelmed by the different areas of unsafeness, I guess you could say. And that's not something that I dealt with in the past. And I'm a big time researcher. So if I get something in my brain and I'm like, I want to know more about that, like I'm going to learn everything there is to know. So one of the things that I found through this is like us as moms or us as women in general are wired for safety and wired to protect and have a hyper awareness that like mom's intuition, I think women's intuition is huge. And we're so vulnerable during this postpartum time, physically, emotionally, mentally, and we have this huge responsibility of caring for a tiny person. And I think back in the day when we were like foraging for food and there were a lot more stressors, animals, and whatever out there, this made sense. But like now, where do we place that? And so we still have that like evolutional need to protect and keep your family and yourself safe during vulnerable times. And I felt that so much during my postpartum.
Wow. Yeah, and I think people don't really realize also that there's so many like that it's not just postpartum depression, right? The postpartum anxiety, which I think it might be a little bit more common. So yeah,
Yeah, I would agree. I feel like obviously postpartum depression is a lot of people have it and don't realize, but I think anxiety too. I
yeah.
think we think we are these like crazy obsessed moms, but really it's just so overwhelming what you're doing and going
Mhm.
through and processing that it just makes sense.
Yeah. So the next one on my list is to add postpartum supports to my registry. So that can be things like money going towards a doula, money going towards a lactation consultant, money going towards mental health services. Like you were afraid of your anxiety, you could see somebody during that time. So just like all of these things that would just be so helpful, or even a house cleaner. I, that is all supports that you need postpartum because you really can't even, you can barely get out of bed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing to add to that is a meal train. It's so easy. It's maybe uncomfortable to ask people to join it. Find a friend who like doesn't care about asking or like posting it on their social media. We were very lucky in our postpartum. We probably didn't make a meal for 2 months straight. And it was like a dream. I knew it was one thing that I did not have to worry about, but knew it was like so necessary, obviously, for me to eat. I was breastfeeding, not
Ugh.
sleeping a ton. So, yeah, I agree. Those like supports that are sometimes don't seem essential, but definitely are once you're in it. I totally agree. Kind of forward thinking about that if you're able to, or talk to people who have had one, two, multiple kids about what was helpful support wise for them afterwards and kind of line that up before you need it.
Yeah.
One of the things that I did was just kept a laundry list of, and this was recommendation by my postpartum doula, was to have a laundry list of lactation consultant, a pediatric dentist who could do like tongue tie clipping, or the pediatrician that I wanted to go to, their specific name and if they're in insurance. So like doing all of that stuff when you're pregnant, being like, what possible services could I need afterwards and doing the legwork then? Because when you're tired and postpartum and your boobs are leaking and you're still bleeding, you're tired and your body
And
hurts,
your
like,
hormones and
I
you're
know.
crying and
I
you're hungry.
know. It's like the
Yeah.
last thing you want to do is like research professionals to go see. So I say definitely do that ahead of time. That's a good one.
Yeah. I had asked for a meal train or gift cards towards meals on my
Yes.
list too. Yeah, I
Yes.
had a friend that did that. So they had a baby shower and they said, we don't need any baby
Mm-hmm.
items. Here's where we could use your services. And it was like a whole sign up sheet through a website. And I thought that was amazing. Like, it's that is way more helpful
Mm-hmm.
than, I don't know, sheets for a crib that they're not
Yeah,
going to
for
be
sure.
in.
Yeah. And I think unfortunately a lot of times as women, I know specifically for me, I am the helper, so I feel badly or guilty asking other people for help. But like just like you, people want to help. And so when they don't know, they don't want to bother you, they don't want to text you and be like, "Hey, what do you need?" If they already have a list of things that are like, "Hey, I think this could help me," ahead of time, it totally solves the problem of not wanting to ask or feeling uncomfortable. Just having a list of, hey, these are the things that I could utilize. Come do my dishes for me once a week. That would be amazing.
Yeah. So it's funny that you say that because next on my list, I had asked people to complete a task when visiting to meet your baby.
Oh,
So,
yes, I love this.
like, I didn't do that, but next time around, I
Yep.
would totally be like, "Hey, can you load the dishwasher? Can you
Hmm.
put their clothes in the laundry? Can you take the trash out?" Like, you're gonna come meet my child. This is what the one little thing I could help have you really provide me with help in as well.
Introducing the Secret Mom Hacks podcast. Hosted by me, Krista Dykes, this show is for first time moms who wish to model the best version of themselves for the tiny humans looking up to us. From self-care and worthiness to navigating unique parenting obstacles, expect new weekly episodes that are honest and relatable no matter how old your child is. Subscribe to Secret Mom Hacks wherever you listen to podcasts and leave every episode feeling inspired and hopeful, knowing you are not on this mom journey alone.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't do that either, but like hindsight, I would definitely keep a laundry list on my refrigerator and be like, hey, if you're holding the baby, check off a few things first from our
Right.
to-do list.
And I think when people, and it's probably just like us moms, like our nature now that we know what
Mm-hmm.
it's like, I would not mind doing that. I wouldn't mind
Yes.
sending a text and be like, hey, can I stop at the grocery store for you and pick up anything? Or even
Mm-hmm.
just bring them something. If I'm going to come meet your baby here, I'm just going to bring you food.
Yeah,
You can freeze
absolutely.
it.
Or coffee. Yeah,
Yes.
a fun drink. Yeah, something to get excited about. Yeah, I agree. I think, and also to that, I think a lot of times in the very early days of being a new mom, like you need a break, but then you also like feel so pulled to your baby and don't want your baby to be like held by other people, or it's natural and normal. I want to validate that like I felt that way and I was totally shocked that I would. I thought I'd be like willingly handing my baby to people. It wasn't the case for me. So that's valid for one, I'll say. But also, people want to see and visit. And if you are in a place where you're like, I'm just going to hold my baby, I'm not ready to have other people hold my baby, that's the perfect time to be like, hey, can you do a few things for me? I'm happy to feed the baby, or I'm snuggling with the baby right now. Would you do XYZ on my list? Again, people are always willing to help.
Yeah. What's next on your list?
Yeah, so mine's a little deep again, but that postpartum depression is not just in the first few weeks. My background, I'm a non-clinical person in a behavioral health background. So I am a project manager for behavioral health. I'm doing like the marketing and the spreadsheets and all of that stuff, but I'm so immersed in that area. And then having this podcast also has given me a lot of insight about postpartum, depression, anxiety, all of that stuff. But I still had this conception that it was like, okay, the first 3 weeks, look out for a lot of crying, super sad, no emotion at all. Here are the things that you need to look out for the first few weeks. I had, even though I tell people all the time, it can come anytime, I didn't believe that for myself. I didn't see that for myself. So one of the reasons I chose to have a postpartum doula was because of that. I was concerned, okay, I have an anxiety, OCD background. It's very likely I'll experience postpartum depression. And so I was like, I want someone here to be a third party to see, okay, things seem a little off. It never occurred to me that could happen to me at 3 months and then again at 6 months. I, at one point, was like, I think I have postpartum depression, but is it really? Am I just in a postpartum period? Like it all counts. So like postpartum period is a year. I think they even say sometimes 2 years after having a child. That's how long it takes for your body to quote unquote normalize. It's never going to be back to your pre-baby body, but your hormones level out. You're feeling a little more comfortable in your body. You're no longer breastfeeding sometimes. And then if you're in the US, a lot of times you're going back to work or you're choosing not to go back to work. There's so many huge life changes in general having a baby, but then as you get to month 3 and month 6, you're just expected to go back to normal. And I think that I felt like I had this monumental life shift having a baby. And at month 3, I was just expected to go back to who I was before. And I was like, wait a second, this is not all the same. So I think processing all of my birth experience, my postpartum, now I have a newborn, processing all of that, I think like really shook me. And that is when the depression for me set in. So my big advice coming from that is if you do have a history of mental health challenges or feel like, okay, maybe I could be someone that is a little more shakeable or fragile, as I describe my own self in that time period, connect yourself to care prior. I have a friend who's pregnant now, has a history of anxiety, and I said, just find someone now who you can connect with and be like, hey, there's my issues. I'm pregnant. Here are some, when you're pregnant, there's so much you're going through that would benefit talking to someone then anyway. But I was very lucky that I was connected to care already through a therapist. And then I was already medicated, so I had a provider. And so when that depression set in, I was able to be like, hey, there's like red flags. Let's work on this. Whereas it would have been so much harder for me to find the right therapist. Are they in my network and do all of that background stuff? So I would definitely connect to care if you're able to, whether it's virtual, whether it's like spiritual care, something, because I did not expect at 3 months to be like, oh, I have postpartum depression.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of that just comes so unexpectedly. And now I think that our society is doing a better job of talking about it and not making it such a like taboo and bad thing. But yeah, it's definitely something to think about. Okay, where can I go? What would I do if I end up being an individual that needs the support? How can I access that?
Yeah, and I would say Postpartum International is incredible, but I would, on the clinical side, I would also, if any of your friends have ever said, oh, I had postpartum anxiety or postpartum depression, if they're willing to be like, hey, can I bend your ear a little bit about your experience just to know, one, you're not alone, and two, you have someone that if it's happening to you, you can go to them and be like, hey, I think I'm experiencing it too. This is what I have going on. I think it's so valuable to build your community while you're pregnant, just because you never know what you're going to experience. And sometimes it's nice to just complain to a friend that gets it. So I think that there's value to that as well.
Yes, that's a good point. The next one for me is really hard, I think, for every mom. And we hear this a lot, but nap whenever, nap however long you can, as little as you can. Everybody says nap when the baby naps. And as ideal and as amazing as that sounds, it's probably not going to happen, but make a point of doing it at some point in the day. Like, not every time they nap, maybe, but at least once.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I was like so set on doing just this because I was so annoyed, like you said, so annoyed by people being like, get your sleep now. It makes no difference. I'm large and pregnant. I'm not sleeping anyway. So I'm not going to bank up my sleep. But I was so determined to do the sleep when the baby sleeps because I know myself. I'd be like, okay, here's my laundry list. Let me do the laundry. Let me fold the clothes. Let me take a shower. Let me brush my hair. Let me do this laundry list of things while I have 45 minutes. So knowing myself, I was like, I'm not doing that. I will keep my laundry list just to keep my head a little clearer. But what I would do is I would put the baby down either for a nap in his bassinet or a contact nap. If I knew it was coming, I'd be like, okay, let me write down the things that I would want to do at that point, and that's what would build my laundry list. So I could take a nap and not have my head swirling of the millions of things that I need to do. And then when my mom or my mother-in-law or my sister would come over, I'd be like, hey, can you do the things that I wasn't able to do? Or you're just sitting chatting. My mother-in-law would take the basket and start folding the clothes. We're just chit-chatting. Like, one, it'll all get done. Two, if it doesn't, uh, three, again, people are always willing to help you. But the one thing that people can't help you do is rest. And your body needs it. You've gone through 1,000 marathons delivering a baby, no matter how you delivered, your sleepless nights with just having a newborn, like you need the rest and you can't care for your baby if you're not caring for yourself as well.
Yes. I think that's just being a new mom. It's so hard because you're like, oh, I can get all this stuff done, but
Mm-hmm.
let it go. Get the
Yep.
supports that you ask for the
Yep.
help, you have people do tasks.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my next things is I didn't realize how much pressure I would feel to get everything done and do everything like the quote unquote right way. And I was like, oh my God, I need to like have this beautiful baby room and have the diaper caddy a specific way, or his clothes need to be done in this specific way. But then also, okay, is his sleep schedule correct? Like, I'm just letting him sleep whenever he wants to. Is that how I'm supposed to do it? Is he eating enough? Is he sleeping enough? Is he alert enough? Am I doing the little flashcards enough? It's so overwhelming, or was for me, to feel like I have to do this right. Like, this is my first kid. This is my first go at it. I have to do this right, or I'm like failing him in some way. I barely remember the newborn stage. He's not going to remember it. Don't put undue pressure on yourself. or allow external pressure to come in, like it doesn't serve you. And this is exactly what I would tell myself a year ago or 2 years ago. It doesn't serve you to let those things consume you. Just enjoy where you're at now. Try to. It's hard, but I really didn't realize how much pressure I would feel to do it right.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, they're only this small for such a short time. I tell friends, I'll get asked, hey, do you remember when Luciano started to do this or when he first did that? And thinking back, it wasn't that long ago. He just turned 2, but I'm like, that first year, you're just so sleep deprived and they change so fast. It goes by in the blink of an eye that it's hard to recall. Gosh, did he roll at 4 months
Mm-hmm.
or 3? Was he? You remember like the big stages and moments, but
Yeah.
I can't recall like the first time that he smiled or little things like that. So they're gonna get there, but really enjoy that year because it goes by so fast and they're only this tiny for such
I
a
know.
short time.
I know. Yeah, my last one is to piggyback on that one. I didn't realize that I wouldn't remember any. You're so immersed in it. You're like, oh my God, I'll never forget this. But there are so many things that I'm like, oh my God, I don't know when, like you said, I don't know when he sat up first, or I don't know what his first smile was. But one of the best pieces of advice, I don't know where I got it from, but it really stuck in my head, was not just to take a million pictures, take as many pictures as you can, up your Google Photos storage, like you're going to need it, but take videos. So like short little videos of them doing like the cute little thing. Like when you're taking a picture, just take a quick video too. Those are the ones that like Google will be like, here's this time a year ago. There's nothing day to day that's reminding me to remember it. But like when those come up, I'm like, oh my God, I totally forgot he did this, or like that cute little outfit, or there's so many things that you're just not going to remember because that's just how our brains operate, that having a cute little snippet of a video or picture to be like, oh yeah, I remember that, has been like positive for me. Like seeing the little pictures come through like on my desktop or on my computer or my iPhone. I loved every newborn infant stage, and you just forget it all. And I had no idea that I wouldn't, in the moment, I'm like, yes, I will. How could I forget this? We're feeling so connected in the beginning, and then life just continues to move on. Yeah, that was the best piece of advice I ever got.
Yeah, it is so true. I love that. That's the great ending
Yes.
to things we wish we had known about postpartum or what we would do differently. But it is, I agree with you. Take so many pictures, take so many videos. It is nice that we have that ability that our
Mm-hmm.
parents didn't have.
Yes. Yeah, you don't have to dig them out of a box now.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm so excited that we were able to connect and get together. I'm really hoping, it's on my list, that I can get a list of this created and shared when this episode comes out. But all of your podcast details, ways to contact you will be linked in the show notes.
Perfect.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening. Tune in next week for our next episode. You can find us on Instagram for more updates and tips. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts and give us a review if you like us.